Тож переходимо до першої панелі, і з задоволенням я б хотів би запросити.
We are shifting to a new panel, and I would like to invite the panelists and to discuss the ways we need to cover on the way to water recovery.
And I'm pleased to welcome you, Mrs. Aliona Shkrum, First Deputy Minister, Ministry for Community and Territory Development of Ukraine. Warm welcome, any place you want. Pleasure to see you.
А я із задоволенням хочу запросити П'єра Ельбрана, спеціального уповноваженого.
It's with my pleasure I would like to invite Pierre Herborn, the special representative of the President of France on issues of economic aid and reconstruction of Ukraine.
Of Denmark, Mrs. Camilla Christensen Rai, joining us, a very strong supporter of the sector. Welcome, Camilla. Thank you.
Із задоволенням запрошую Томаша.
It's my pleasure to invite Tomasz Kopieczny, the governmental envoy for the reconstruction of Ukraine, Czech Republic.
We also have a good colleague, Mr. Martin Benedict Albrecht from the World Bank, Senior Water Resource Management Specialist based in Vienna. Most warm welcome, Martin.
It's my pleasure to invite William Silvestre,
Last but not least, we have the pleasure to welcome André Fabian, the head of Felicity 2 program of GIZ in Ukraine. Warm welcome, André. All right. The first questions will go to the government, to you, Aliona, as follows. So, what reform does the government consider essential to progress towards the EU membership in the water and sanitation sector? And what are the ministry's key priorities for alignment with EU legislation over the next 2 years?
Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you for this very concrete question. I will allow myself a little bit of introduction, if I may, but obviously we are going to talk about the reforms, the plans, the new legislation, and the new programs that we have, thanks to your help as well in this area. It's an honor and a delight to be with such a renowned panel, but also with so many friends where we work together in the water sector in terms of investment, in terms of water quality, in terms of attracting investment from different countries, concrete businesses, and in the sectoral working group on utilities, where we have created a special group for water and sanitation, and it was said by Nicolas, co-chaired by France, by UNICEF, and by us as a ministry. I will start with maybe some difficult talking points, because we had a difficult night today in Kyiv, while we had a beautiful morning here in Warsaw, and I did look up that during the last 3 nights, Russia has deliberately targeted water infrastructure. So this is not an accident. This is not news for most of you. Russia deliberately, for the past years, target water treatment facilities, water pipeline, wastewater management systems, and does it in the big cities, in the regions on the east, and in the cities of Kyiv, Kremenchuk, Zaporizhia, Chernivtsi, Kherson, Kharkiv, are the main targets when we receive it, unfortunately, very, very often. Obviously, they are trying to cut logistics from the regions, and they are trying to cut water supply to multi-story buildings to the big cities. We are facing a difficult winter, and we are preparing and doing the physical protection of energy facilities, and not only energy facilities, since this October, when it was passed to the Agency of Restoration. However, the scale of damages is quite significant and quite scary at the first time, but also it gives us a lot of opportunities and possibilities to renovate the sector and to actually change how we operate the sector. So, as always, we Ukrainians try to find not just resilience in those times, but we try to find opportunities, and those opportunities are there notwithstanding all the tragedies that are going on. I will start with the rapid damage and needs assessment, which you showed a little bit on the slides. So we do it together with the World Bank, European Union and other partners. And as a ministry, we have started already the work on RDNA 5, which will be ready in a number of months, and where we will see the new damages and the needs for the water sector. And specifically, we asked for the borderline and frontline regions, because 75% of all of the destruction are concentrated in 10 to 11 regions of Ukraine, which are on the borderline of those horrible events. So it's on the border with Belarus, with Russia, and with the Black Sea. And the needs that were already counted by the expert of the World Bank according to the methodology that is trusted all over the world after all of those kind of crises, events, natural disasters and wars, the needs for recover the Ukrainian water sector and waste management sector is more than 11 billion of US dollars, which obviously is quite a dramatic figure, but it also shows us the possibility of investment, the possibility for reconstruction, the possibility of businesses to get involved, and the possibilities to change the sector, which very honestly, and I will say it way before the war, which was also outdated, was very Soviet Union technically managed, and needed this change. When we look at the amount of pipes, water pipes, and their lengths that have been damaged, do need reconstruction and do need recovery, the amount is more than 780 kilometers of pipes. It is more than a distance of the whole Poland from east to west or from north to south. So again, it's quite a horrifying picture, but it's also a picture of possibilities and picture of new rebuilding the sector ideas. And obviously, when we talk about the sector, it really needs reforms, it needs ideas, it needs new regulation, and it needs to be aligned with European directives, because Ukraine have successfully finished the screenings in Brussels in the topic of water as well. And we have no choice than to move forward in that way. That is why this is the priority number one. We also have a number of environmental disasters that we had to deal with, and I think with the help of all of you here, and with the help of the donors, and with the help of international organizations, I think that we can honestly say we dealt with very successfully in the circumstances. So when Russia hit the Kakhovka Dam, it left without water a number of millions of people and 3 different parts of 3 different regions in the east and in the south of Ukraine. And we had to make a decision how to reconstruct and supply potable water to all of the Nikolaev region, to the people of Nikolaev and to the farmers and agriculture of Nikolaev sector. It was a direct, order of the president to give water for Nikolaev. We talked a lot with different international banks, with different investment banks, and obviously the procedures of the IFIs was never created and were never done to reconstruct such massive projects after the disaster and after the war. So no IFI in the world, I'm so sorry to say that, were created to reconstruct the country in times of war, in times of shellings, and fast and super efficient. So we could not wait for 3 years. People have been already without water for a number of years, and we took it to the task of the SARDI, of the Agency of Restoration, and had to align money from the budget. And I am quite proud to say that the agency did it in 7 months, and the water was supplied in 9 months. As to 3 years that was in the plan with the procedures of the international partners. So we had to do it much faster. We had to also do it as cheap and as transparent as possible. So we are quite proud that the economy of funds was 25%. Initially, the sum that was allocated from the budget was 8.7 billion hryvnias, and we were able to do it 25% less. And we were able to relocate those funds to do smaller pipelines in the Odessa regions and supply water in the Odessa region for the agriculture sector. obviously, this is not an ideal case. I mean, I'm proud of this case, but it should not be done like that. It should be done with, with more time. It should be done not in undershellings. It should be done with the help of all of the high-profile international experts. But this is what we have to do, and I think that this experience is also an experience that we can use and could reform and use it for the future to make more innovative technologies to build the pipelines faster, to restore the pipelines faster, and obviously we don't have a lot of time to do that right now. In Kramatorsk, for example, the missile recently hit a facility, water treatment reagents, and the filtration station did not work in the city for 4 days. For me, even being in Kiev, it's quite difficult to imagine no water in the multi-store buildings in the big city for 4 days. No wastewater management. So obviously, UNICEF and other donors and other partners had to give to the residents non-potable water for household needs, and basically had to give them possibilities to just get water on the streets, which should not happen in the center of Europe in the 21st century, but this is where they are. In Kiev Podil district, recently a large missile attack damaged the main water supply network and cut off water to entire residential area of Podil. Most of you know Podil. Particularly, it goes to the multi-store buildings, the buildings that are more than 7 floors high, and at the last floors, people have no water and no possibility to get water until emergency repairs have been done. So obviously, it's quite a horrifying situation, but also we are coming up with, I think, quite new ideas and innovative possibilities how to repair it faster. What we desperately need, we need to change the outdated pipelines, because we will not restore and cannot restore the old pipelines as it was. This is really where the Build Back Better comes real. And we need to do it with energy efficiency standards. We need to do it with the economy of funds for the energy, because this is where we are, not just with European Union obligations, but also with the reality of the war and winter. And we need to do it with new technologies and new quality standards for the pipes, for the equipment used to produce the pipes, and etc., etc. Every Ukrainian, for sure, deserves access to drinking water and clean and safe water and sanitation. This is our chance to rebuild the sector according to those new standards. In Borodyanka, for example, we are doing right now the comprehensive recovery approach, because there were so many destructions in the cities. This is the city that was occupied by Russia for 40 days, 1 hour from Kiev to the north, and there were so many destructions, more than 65% of all of the buildings, water pipelines, roads, hospitals, kindergartens were destroyed or very, very damaged, that it didn't make sense to build everything back as it was. It made sense to actually put the new pipes. It made sense to build the new buildings and completely destroy the rest that were already damaged. So this comprehensive recovery approach allowed us to look at the new plans for the water sector, to do it with energy efficiency mechanisms. And I would be very honored if you could come to Borodyanka. I know that we have a steering committee of the donor platform very soon, and the next day the experts allowed us to take them to Borodyanka. So we will be able to see the water pipelines there as well. And I will move quite fast. Basically, what we need is also investment in the sector. But to do the investments in the sector and to do PPPs in the sector, while we already have some of the very concrete projects which we started in Rome on the URC and show here, for example, PPP feasibility study for Truskovets, which is a small city on the western part of Ukraine, and Dnipro, which is a huge, huge city on the east of Ukraine. Those feasibility studies for PPPs were done by PricewaterhouseCoopers with the help of the IFIs, with the help of other donors, and they have had huge interest from a number of investors. And even Dnipro, notwithstanding the shellings, notwithstanding the close to Russia, actually has enormous potential in my experience, and I think that we will try it as one of the pilot successful cases. But obviously, in order to have more PPPs, in order to have more investment in this area, we need to change some of the standards, we need to apply new legislation, we need to talk about the painful subject of tariffs in the water sector, and here we really rely on your expertise, Nicola, and your work and expertise in other countries, that it does not have to, in times of war and crisis and winter, to come directly the cost of the tariffs to the population, that there are other possibilities, there are successful reforms in other countries of the sector, so here we very much rely on that. We are also doing it hand in hand with reform of the EU acquis, not because we have to, but because we need to build back better, and we need to rebuild not the pipeline, we need to rebuild the hope and the new quality standards for people so that we do it for the future, not rebuild the past. So we are working with our deputy Kovalchuk, Kostya, who is responsible for water sector. We are working together with international partners to implement a number of target state water programs. And in the first reading, we already had adopted in the parliament the draft law 13578, which was developed by the ministries according to the EU acquis standards to modernize the sector and to do the comprehensive reform of the sector with the systematic assessment of technical conditions of the quality of water and sewage system, and very clear and transparent connection rules to sewage networks and to water networks, and a formal defining what is a non-centralized sanitation, because right now it's more relevant than ever. We're also implementing 3 technical programs. One is target economic program for energy modernization of the water supply and wastewater system until 2030. Energy efficiency are not just beautiful words for us anymore. It is a need. Mayors understand that, communities understand that, and obviously we will do whatever it takes to get resources for that. The next one is a state target social program for improving drinking water supply until 2035, and the state target environmental program for technical modernization of the wastewater treatment enterprises until 2034. This is something that we do with the ministry and together with you. And the last words I'm going to say, I'm sorry, I have been talking for a long time, but it is quite an important and dear to my heart subject. We also have a number of possibilities from European Investment Bank and European Commission. It is my big pleasure to announce that yesterday we were able to sign on behalf of the ministry together with the European Investment Bank and the EU Commission, Violaine was there, a grant for 25 million euros to add to the 100 million credit money for the water recovery program that we worked together with Violaine and European Investment Bank for a while. So this money, 1/4 would be the grant money, and the rest of the money, our credit, can go and should go to water pipelines, waste treatment management, energy efficiency on the water sector. We already did a pre-selection process, so who would be interested, and received a number of big applications. It is a program that I am coordinating personally, and it is just the first tranche, so the next tranche would be also 125 million with exactly 1/4 of grant. And it is my task, basically, together with Violaine and European Investment Bank, to show as fast as possible the possibility to absorb those funds and to do it efficiently, transparently, and to show successful pilot cases to other communities and other mayors who may still be reluctant to go into this program, and to show PPP projects in this area. I'm sorry I have been so long.
Thank you so much. You have been long indeed, but very happy because it shows your leadership on all fronts, the response and then the PPPs and all the work in operationalizing. All right, next.
Ну, власне, було багато сказано про міжнародну.
Right, a lot was said about international support, and France helps a lot. This year, it was a number of contracts signed already, and for previous periods as well. That's why the questions for Pierre. Pierre, if you can tell us what France's practices can be used in Ukraine to stabilize the situation with water supply and water sewage system, and perhaps what additional mechanisms can Europe use? It's a general question. Europe to stimulate reforms in Ukraine.
Thank you very much for the question. And obviously difficult to speak after Aliona with all her passion, and also the very interesting data and analysis you presented, which are extremely useful, I think, to ground also decision-making on objective elements. I would say, obviously, the subject we're talking about is really fundamental. It's not a new subject for France in its commitment to Ukraine, well before, by the way, the full-scale invasion. We had a lot of projects in Mariupol region, but in other regions of the country. So it's not a discovery that there are needs, and the needs are structural ones, as was very well reminded. And that's why we're also very happy to be involved in the governance of the sectoral working group, because I think it's a good opportunity to put around the table all the actors to talk openly about the bottlenecks, what has to be done, also to reach, I think, the objectives we mentioned, which are obviously to attract new capital at scale. And that's not obvious because we know that and we share that with Ukraine in France, because France has 36,000 of new municipalities, so probably more than municipalities for the rest of the European Union as a whole, which sometimes is a bit of a challenge. But we have also a very successful model of local public services, despite of the fact that we have, at the end of the day, 36,000 people, decision makers about these public services. So to combining scale with also a vibrant democracy, which is the case of Ukraine, like our country, is both a challenge and an opportunity. And as you mentioned very well in your introduction, there are some building blocks which are very well known about tariffs, which are not easy sometimes politically to accept at the local level, but pilot cases can show also the benefits of savings, even if you are increasing tariffs, which makes water supply more affordable. And at the end of the day, the voter, who is also a key more or less actor in this equation, can be convinced by practical examples where you have a much more sustainable water and sanitation system at the local level. Maybe just a few words about how to do that. Obviously, it's about regulation. Aliona mentioned that, and the implementation of European acquis in that sector is a must, but afterwards, obviously beyond the rules, it's how you implement them. And these are discretionary measures which are taken by the Ukrainian government and by also municipalities and mayors in the whole country. So it's not only about rules, it's about rules combined with wise decisions and informed decisions by Sardi and by, at the local level, by mayors. So that's one building block. Second building block is about, how we can bring together development money, more or less, in the country to do it. Obviously, my colleagues from the World Bank, GIZ, and EIB and others will mention that. This is really fundamental, and that's why we consider that guarantees to these institutions can help them in providing that support. Agence Française de Développement, which is now active in Ukraine, has a huge experience in water, probably one of the largest agency. It has a portfolio of 10 billion euros in the whole world in just this sector. So it's really, these are very big numbers. And we've opened an office last year in Kiev with funded projects in Dnipropetrovsk and Kherson Oblast, which will allow tens of thousands of Ukrainians securing access to clean water. So that's one element. The second element, which is linked to how to encourage and to make the link with the private sector, which is really very important, has been also this infrastructure fund we've put together. There are projects in many different fields, but also in the water sector. For example, Saint-Gobain received 15 million euros grant to increase the water supply volume from the Karachnivtsi water supply complex with parallel network lying. This is a good example where more or less an actor develops a project in the country and afterwards make reference that it works and it can bring value immediately to Ukrainian citizens. And I think this win-win strategy with regulation, the right incentives put in place, both by regulation and by tariff setting, and the involvement of international companies partnering with Vodafone is the right set to get things moving forward based on bankable, profitable, and de-risked projects which send the signals. Business is open in Ukraine also, and I see more and more companies, large companies like Suez, which have by experience, but also smaller companies in the water supply chain, which are now going on business mission to Ukraine, meeting mayors in all the oblasts, and having also the support of the Ministry of Aliona, which is really critical also for long-term commitment to the country.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you so much. And for highlighting, thank you, the link between water and governance for the building blocks and for accepting the challenge of chairing the coordination. As we'll hear today, we have a lot of work on the table just with that. Thank you so much. I'm now going to you, Camilla, from you're the Water and Environment Advisor for the Embassy. You're based in Kiev and very much involved in the sector. And so the question to you is, which element of Denmark's approach to water resource management and decentralized systems could serve as a model for Ukraine? And how does Denmark see its potential involvement in rebuilding the Ukraine's critical water infrastructure?
Right.
If the question is clear.
Thank you very much. And of course, thank you very much for the invitation to be here at the Border Recovery Forum. It's a pleasure. I'm at the Embassy of Denmark in Kiev since July 2024. And I'll talk about how, as you proposed, from Danish side. I think it's important, as also mentioned in the beginning, that why we are here together is look together and how to develop an effective water solutions for the water sector in Ukraine. So I will talk about two things. First of all, Denmark and Ukraine, we have very strong bilateral cooperation on water sector. This is with Ministry Economy, Environment, Agriculture, Ministry of Development, National Regulator, State Agency for Water Resource, State Geological Survey, of course, also Water Canal Association, and we work closely with UNICEF also. From Government of Denmark, we work and support and want to contribute to the water sector in Ukraine in 4 different ways. First of all, of course, we have a very strong Denmark-Mykolaiv partnership with a strong Danish presence in Mykolaiv and interventions including in water sector. Secondly, we have the intergovernmental strategic sector cooperation between Denmark and Ukraine on water and environment with our Ministry of Environment of Denmark, the Danish Environmental Protection Agency, and our government Ukraine counterparts. This is foreseen to work on the regulation in the water sector and also on I think it's around 5 EU directives and how this could contribute into the implementation of the EU directives in the Ukraine national legislation. of course, we know that the Water Framework Directive, it is very well worked on by Ukraine, and the 9 river basin management plans as very important tools and steps forward. Thirdly, from Denmark, we work with our trade council on supporting Danish businesses to do business in Ukraine, and also very happy to say that we had a very strong presence at the Lviv Eco Forum. We had the Danish Water Days by Danish Water Forum together with Water Canal Association. And fourthly, our 2 financial institutions providing loans, guarantees in Ukraine, as well as, of course, in the water sector. So this is our presence. I think that from experience I have got now from being in Ukraine 1.5 years, definitely that, as also mentioned, energy efficiency in the water sector, the non-revenue water. As I can see, these are the 2 here and now approaches one could take to find solutions and for a sustainable long-term water sector in Ukraine. And of course, the water tariffs is very important, but it is for me a little more long-term, you can say, as for the different reasons we have already heard today. I think that if we should go on a little more concrete way and how to move ahead on a sustainable water sector, as far as I can see it, 2 points. How is it to develop the projects? The projects which could be identified by the city, by the municipalities, by the water canals. How to development, and the second part, what are the criteria, what are sustainability criteria for the tenders for these for such projects? The first part about the preparation of water projects in the water sector, I do think that, and of course I will be very happy for any input in this regard and any reflection in this regard, that it could be that it is prepared as it is. It is prepared as it is, meaning that the staff, the experts, the professionals in the water canals, in the municipalities, they prepare. I'm not talking about capacity building, nothing at all of that. We already have very strong technical, professional persons, colleagues in the water canals, in the municipalities. So prepare the projects. And the second thing I'd like to discuss is that, do we need any ready-made formats or not? Maybe not. Maybe we rather need a checklist. So that it is a preparation of projects for the pipeline. And I do think that the DREAM platform, the single project pipeline of the DREAM, is a place really to work towards, because it's a government, of course, it's part of the reform of the government, and it provides a mutual, equal, or what we can say, same approach to projects at the municipality level and at the national level. And then the second part is we could discuss, of course, the sustainability criteria for selecting a project which has, and I'm talking about, as also was mentioned by previous speakers, a new infrastructure of Ukraine, the new water infrastructure for drinking water and wastewater treatment. So this was just to give a few practical points, and we are of course very happy to explore on any of these areas, and of course to bring in solutions from Denmark or from Danish companies relevant for Ukraine in this regard. Thank you. I hope it gave some response to your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It did indeed, and we can count on increased presence of French and Danish enterprises in the country, and I hope it also benefits the private sector of Ukraine in terms of transfer of competences, which I know you have at heart. Over to you, Dmitro.
А ми, власне, співпрацюємо з данським.
Yes, actually, I would like to say that we have been cooperating with the Danish companies, and they provide consulting and services, and for which I'm grateful to our colleagues. the Czech Republic. Czech actually has covered a difficult path to the European Union with regard of the water framework, and I would like you to share your experience, how it was, what lessons have you learned on this way, on this path, and what lessons could you speak about in order to render some help and assistance to Ukraine? Дякую.
It's such an esteemed panel. Well, we learn as we walk in, and we try to go all the way. That's basically what we have been doing since the beginning. In 2022, as Deputy Minister of Defense, I was responsible for delivering as many weapons as possible to Ukraine. We were always saying they should go all the way. They should reach wherever the Ukrainian armed forces need them to go. When I was appointed Government Commissioner for Ukraine in January 23, the first thing I was doing was preparing business missions, business delegations, and in March we went to Kharkiv and Dnipro so that we would deliver whatever is needed all the way. And we quickly understood that, yes, we do not want to wait for after the war, for a ceasefire or whatever, that we need to deliver as we speak, as we discuss these things, as we observe the immense suffering and destruction. So we chose an approach which is basically categorized as a decentralized and frontline recovery effort. Decentralized because we focus mostly on municipalities. We work with, yes, regions, oblasts, administrations, but also we work directly with cities, with towns, and especially in the east, in the frontline regions. And we observe many of the challenges that were mentioned here, mostly the absorption capacity, the very lack of knowledge how to write a project, how to ask for a loan, and how to structure a tariff that would be sustainable for the local population. So in the first 2-3 years, we were delivering 100% on a grant principle, meaning we were delivering for what we acquired, for what we bought, and now, not to define us by the ambition, but by, I would say, tangible results and what we have delivered, we can now say this year that 500,000 people in Dnipropetrovщina, in Dnipropetrovska Oblast, are being delivered water treatment plants so that they can drink drinking water, especially after the destruction of the Nova Kachovka Dam, which was mentioned. Now, so that's the figure, 500,000 people on a very localized, decentralized solution basis. So we have delivered these water treatment plants to dozens of municipalities, based on the decision of the administration of the oblast, or the rayons specifically. And we are doing it because this is our lesson learned from our own experience. And in the Czech experience of coming into the EU and going through all the legislative and practical hurdles and overcoming the obstacles in the past 20 years, it was the municipalities that were the driving force of the modernization of everything in water sector. You know, we have thousands of water treatment, of water management companies in Czechia, country of 10 million, because everyone is taking care of their own little field. I'm not saying it's the perfect solution. I'm not saying it's great for economy, but this is how it works the best somehow for the country. And yes, we are able to deliver almost 100% of drinking water to 100% of our population gets drinking water. So that's why we chose to share our experience with the municipalities, but also with the government of Ukraine, and to really work directly with those who will be implementing the ideas and running the programs. The vodocanals. We are working with 25 different vodocanals all over the country. And the number one obstacle is always the absorption capacity. So technical assistance from the programs run by the Ukraine facility implementing actors, be it EIB, EBRD, or the national banks, national development banks, is crucial. And that's what we have been doing as well. So Over the past 3 years, we have established not only an export insurance program, which is, by the way, also covering some exports into the water treatment sector, but especially the guarantees mechanism. And I'm very glad that EIB will now be implementing the blending program. So we have one part which is blending, combining grants and credits, and one which is purely credit-based. And already with the purely credit-based program, we are working with Ukraine municipalities, and that's what works. It's town by town different, it's city by city different. It's always about the management, about the administration, about the concrete people. It's about getting rid of the Soviet legacy, not only in the technology, but especially in mentality of management. That's my experience. So new managers coming to Vodokanals, finding new ideas, not wanting to replacing the old pipelines, the old technological system, but maybe finding completely new solutions, looking at the digging wells within the city of Kharkiv that would be supplying blocks of residential buildings and doing some water treatment on it. It doesn't have to be there for the next 50 years, but people in the city need to drink something in the upcoming months and years to come, and this will not change by large-scale infrastructure modernizations only. So that's the Czech experience we try to share with our Ukrainian friends and partners.
Thank you.
Дякую. Дійсно, розпочинаємо.
Indeed, we should start with the change of the mindset.
For the next panelist, which is you, Martin. You heard about how central is the decentralization approach and how it worked in the Czech Republic. And there is no one-size-fits-all, it's all contextualized. So, based on your many years' experience on the World Bank in Ukraine, which are the structural changes in the water and sanitation sector that you think are the most critical for the EU integration? And more specifically, we heard about the importance of decentralization. Do Ukrainian municipalities currently, in your experience, have sufficient institutional capacity to implement the recovery at the pace and scale required?
Thank you very much, Nicholas. Thank you, everybody, for the invitation. Let me just, before I start talking about the concrete response to your question, let me start out by framing it in a bit of a broader context and then drill down to the level of the Vodokanals of a few points of recommendations that we see from the side of the World Bank. First of all, we're planning both the reconstruction and the EU integration at the same time. This is a double challenge that I think is, I don't want to call it unprecedented, but it is very unusual, and as we've heard in the past, it is a very high bar and a big challenge to not only recover, but also prepare for the integration to one of the highest levels of standards that currently exist in the world with the EU directives. In this context, the World Bank has recently proposed an economic path and has framed that that I would like to point out that tries to help us put it into perspective. One of it is that under the current estimates, that at the pre-war levels of GDP that Ukraine had, which were around 2.5%, it would take the Ukraine 37 years to reach the level of GDP per capita standard that Poland had when it joined the EU in relative terms in 2004. That is a very long time. If you wanted to squeeze that time frame into a shorter period, let's say 15 years, it would take an economic growth of about 7% per year sustained over that course of 15 years to reach these levels. Now, how would that economic growth be achieved? And there are three basic principles. One is to increase the productivity, to increase investments, and through the returning human capital, the labor that will come back and continue to engage in economic activity back in Ukraine. Now, here is where water and sanitation basically comes in. It will be at the current access levels, which are around 75 to 80% for water supply, around 70% for connected to sewers, and about a third of the wastewater is treated, and the losses are about 35%. It's going to be very difficult to create a competitive export-oriented economy that would achieve anything between these 5 to 7% economic growth that is required to have to reach these levels of EU integration that we're all striving for. Now, water supply and sanitation founds the foundation of that, for productivity of companies, for the health of the people who are engaged in economic activity. So it is at the very foundation. This is essentially, if we break down the political discussions around EU integration, this is where the rubber hits the road and where we will have to build it. Now, this is just basically to frame the challenge. And I'm sorry if it appears overwhelming. It hopefully always does in the beginning until we actually get to work. And what is also I will repeat it, but it has been made abundantly clear that public funds are not enough to achieve this. We will need private funds. We will need private capital investments. We will need commercial financiers to step in. And the question is then, how do we actually achieve that? And here, to be very frank, find a bit of a disconnect in the very broader discussions that we're leading. A lot of the discussions are around the need for project financing, the need for capital investments to come in, the need for reforms at the level of tariffs, which all of this is certainly necessary, and I would underscore that for sure. But I would like to frame it also on the opportunities that the water canals themselves can do and have a certain responsibility to do. And here, I think the discussion can be made a bit more detailed in that to say that the water canals, the water utilities need to embark on a joint North Star towards becoming creditworthy. Creditworthy is, for a lot of water canals, a point still in the distant futures, just to be very realistic. But it would mean that it is not only it doesn't only mean that water canals would position themselves for future investment, private investments and commercial financing, but they would also utilize that path towards creditworthiness to clean house, to get their house in order. And that essentially means that they engage in good corporate governance, in solid financial and operational management, in sound investment planning, and preparing for actually the steps when the time is right to attract private commercial financing. And these opportunities exist in almost all water canals, and that has been the experience from around the world, that small changes without huge capital investments that are often called for water treatment plants and for replacing entire networks, the opportunity exists for small changes that don't require as much money upfront to build a progress report that over the time can show any potential lender, any potential private investor, the progress that was made, maybe even in the absence of huge capital inflows for capital investments, that still the management of the utility together with the ownership of the utility at the municipal level have shown progress that will count for something. And this is where, right now, and this is the final point for me to make, that this is not only a technical checklist. This requires a shift in mindset from both the management of the utilities as well as from the owners at the municipal level and other shareholders, that needs to go from a subsidy dependence to a performance culture. And this is easier said than done, because it is more about incentives as it is about actual equipment. And so the good news is that a few of the requirements, prerequisites for this to happen exist. The political will, as we've heard very clearly today and across this conference, is there, it's clear. The reform laws have been passed. The clear message is there to private investors that Ukraine is open for business. And so this is the foundation. Without this, it would be impossible. Another couple of toolkits and instruments are being designed and have been proposed. For example, a viability gap fund facility that tries to push certain bankable projects over the threshold to be actually viable, a project preparation facility to get bankable designs, or certain risk-sharing instruments to crowd in for credit enhancement or blended finance to crowd in lenders. I think the role for partners right now, including those of us here in this room, would be to help the utilities, and not just one or two selected ones, but across the board, to sequence these kind of little small smart steps towards improvement, so that incremental improvement is visible, it's verifiable, and contribution can be clearly seen as evidence towards the path towards creditworthiness in the future. Let me stop here, and I return to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. Thank you for bringing that socio-economic development perspective, for reminding the importance of creditworthiness. And I agree, before the big investment came and we are in the field, there are lots of things we can do to improve the efficiency already and before we have the full renovation. Eileen, I'm handing over to Mitro for you. Thank you.
Власне, Мартін зачепив.
That's exactly very important subject Martin touched upon. In what way, in the conditions of tariffs and restrained limits in the budget, how can we receive credits? So perhaps receive a credit when there are losses in the company, it's very difficult. So the question to you, Eileen, in what way, or are there any additional mechanisms for receiving financing for our Vodokanal?
Thank you so much for the question. Yes, I would like just to give a few words about how EIB supports the water sector. We started in 2007 with large investment in Mykolaiv in particular, together with the Danish. We're working very much still in Mykolaiv. In 2014, when the war started, actually, we developed this recovery program. I have here a brochure you can take. And this is a multi-sector support to small communities. At the beginning, we were trying to touch mainly communities directly damaged by the war in Donbas region, or communities which had all of a sudden a very big increase of population and could not deliver water or wastewater as needed. So we supported with this recovery. I would say it's almost 100 projects that we support, and still today. And some of them in a very quick manner. In Bucha, for example, we were able in 6 or 7 months to bring clean water for the population, and some very often many communities very, very able and willing to engage with us. So now, as First Deputy Minister said, we are deploying, we are starting this very large operation. The objective is 200 million. We signed already 100 million loan, and 25 million was announced yesterday by the Ministry for Development, First Deputy Minister Skrum, the Commission, and the EIB together. The objective here, what is it? What do we want to achieve? Basically, we want that the EU and the ministry, the government of Ukraine together bring water, clean water in every community of Ukraine. We don't want to serve the usual big cities that are already very often served. We want to serve villages. We want to serve very small communities. And we want that this is done by the EU and the ministry together to show what the EU can really bring to the population. So we're really touching also very, very small communities. And what are we going to do? It's about repair. There is, of course, a huge need of repair. Substitution of pipes, kilometers and kilometers, we heard, are needed everywhere. It's also about improvement, extension. In some cities, you have such a huge population now, you need new investments. So it's all of it. It's also protection, because we heard what happened tonight. We need also to protect these investments to make sure that they're not destroyed the day after opening. It's also measurements, SCADA, all of it, in water and wastewater. So all of it is eligible. Investments will be between 1 and 50 million euros, so also very small investments, 1 million euro. Many cities need 1 million euro in water and wastewater. And a large portion of it will be grant. We signed yesterday this grant offered by the UEF, Ukraine Investment Framework, 25 million, 400 million loan. And the objective here of the EU is to make sure this investment is really accessible to all communities, in particular those that are in vulnerable areas, vulnerable oblasts. So as First Deputy Minister said, all oblasts which are bordering Belarus, Russia, and Black Sea, but also Poltava, Dnipropetrovsk are going to benefit from this grant. The idea is leave no one behind, really give possibility to access the funding to every community. And here I'm calling, I don't know how many mayors are here in this room and how many EU companies, Polish companies are here in this room, but I'm really calling you, please join the program, please join this. Every community of Ukraine can access it, and every EU company should join, should go to Prozorro, should either send material or create a subsidiary or provide pipes, provide any type of this material that are needed. We need many of the EU constructors, and we need all of the Ukrainian communities to engage. With the GIZ, we have developed a pipeline for this project. GIZ helped us very much, and if we are at this stage, it's really thanks to their support. The pipeline is about 1 billion euro. As we said, we are only signing 100 million, but this is a first phase. There is a second tranche that is already approved and could be signed immediately, but we first need to show that we first need communities to engage with very good projects, to deliver, to disburse, to use the grant, and then there will be the second tranche, and I'm sure there will be also much more than 200 million, because as the World Bank just explained, the cost of not doing these investments is huge for Ukraine. It's a cost because we lose water, we lose energy, we lose in subsidies, and we lose in growth. Basically, we're not doing the 7% growth that is needed for EU accession. So if we deploy, if we absorb, if you engage with us, then the Minister of Finance will, of course, allow for more borrowing, but we first need to do this together. So this is a call to you. Let's do that together. Thank you very much.
Дякую, пані Віолайн.
Thank you so much, Ms. Verlein.
Congratulations for that thing to happen, and really I think that's an important takeaway. We need to make this work. Those 100 million needs to flow and to reach those frontline regions, and I think it's a job for all of us. Thank you. And last but not least, you were quoted, Andre, GIZ, in your support in building that pipeline. So based on you are a renowned agency for technical support at all levels in technical sectors such as water and sanitation. So in Ukraine, based on your experience, the question for you is, how can you help align the water and sanitation sector to the EU directive, and more specifically, how does GIZ assess Ukraine's readiness to adopt modern tools such as asset management and systems for energy efficiency and climate resilience? Thank you, Andre.
Thank you very much for inviting to this panel. Thank you very much for all my pre-speakers. Many things have been already said, so let me give some key messages, yeah, and also let me be brief in that. So GIZ is not a donor, GIZ is an implementing agency, but we are in this sector in Ukraine already for more than a decade. And basically, the different donors, they follow one or two principles. One is subsidies, to turn subsidies into investments, because basically for the state budget it gets cheaper at the end of the day if we don't subsidize this and have all these external costs Violaine just outlined. And secondly, it's about decentralization. So if we have this in the focus, and if we look at what has been just said before, I just wanted to emphasize, first of all, in the West, also in front of our donors, we always hear the energy system is damaged, the energy system. But for the prosperity of Ukraine, you mentioned this very clearly, the water and wastewater sector is equally important. So it's a call also how to basically expand support to Ukraine in this regard, that we work on our communication and we push more for the importance of water. What is our municipalities without water? It cannot survive, yes? So I think we can learn there also from the energy colleagues. Second thing is, yes, Violaine mentioned it. I have the privilege to lead a very innovative, I would say, program. because we managed to link technical cooperation, as it is basically the domain of GIZ, with the financial cooperation instruments, the investment instruments that provide, for instance, EIB, other IFIs. So this is really building a bridge between the needs of the municipalities to the requirements that the IFIs have in order to spend the money and to bring it quickly to the place. So I think with this learnings that we have in this regard, we should continue this, we should scale this, and we would basically jointly also talk to our different funders to make this happen for Ukraine in the future. Then Deputy Minister Schrum said we need to build back better. We need not to rebuild the Soviet-style infrastructure that is there. And there is the DREAM platform and this pipelining. This is all very good. There is one issue I observed, and I observe sometimes upstream of this DREAM platform, how do we get the ideas in the municipalities that an integrated approach, how to modernize the whole infrastructure, maybe even in an integrated way, combining heating with heat pumps, water sanitation systems, maybe collaborating between smaller communities to have one approach which is the best fitting one. How do we get there? We are now in talks with kind of joint venture between the Kiev Polytech Institute and the company called FinCord. They say they can bring together scientists' knowledge, innovative data, and modern approaches, how to help communities to find out what they really want. Sometimes it's very difficult when you are in a community to find the best solution and then to come up with proposals for, let's say, loans by EIB. So this is a very important thing. And another point is, at the moment, we observe a little bit a tendency that instruments, which are environmental policy instruments, like strategic environmental assessment or environmental impact assessments, are a little bit deprioritized. By the way, not only in Ukraine, also in my country, things like this are happening. This is a little bit short-sighted from our point of view, because maybe short-term we gain some quick wins, but in the mid and long term, we lose a lot of ecosystem services if we don't consider these instruments integral part of our planning. So what we do now, and I cordially also invite you, on the basis of the Ukraine Climate Office, on the 25th of November, there will be a presentation of how the strategic environmental assessment for a water program in Ukraine was conducted, and to compare it with the requirements of EU accession, requirements of EU standards, and to derive jointly some learnings. What would this mean for fostering this? Last but not least, on the readiness of Ukraine to adapt innovative approaches, let me say, actually, we are so impressed in GIZ by the agility and the resilience of Ukraine to basically cope with these challenges, that we are conducting right now a little study, what can we learn in Germany from Ukraine, and we call this, working title is Transformation by Crisis. So how can we learn from the enabling factors that you are here in Ukraine obviously have? You survived this terrible attack in an incredible manner. So what can we learn for our transformation process that are equally important in the rest of Europe? So I'm quite convinced, yes, we can adapt a lot of things here in Ukraine, and we can leapfrog also many things. Some examples, renewable energy solutions. This would be something we would like to do together with EIB in the water sector, to supply basically that the water utilities can supply the energy demand themselves. Energy efficiency was already said. I didn't meet in all my time now in Ukraine, not a single water canal who didn't understand the importance of energy efficiency for their own saving of running costs. And the last point is, we did, for instance, a little study in the Khmelnytsky water canal on climate impact. So before we go into investments, to see what will be the climate like in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and to derive concrete decisions for the design of the solution that should be funded, because we are not in a stable climate anymore, we are in a dynamic climate. We have much more heat waves, we have droughts, but we also have heavy rain events when maybe some overload of the system can lead to quick destruction. For that, thank you very much for the opportunity to share some thoughts here.
Thank you, Andrei.
Дякую, Андре. Дуже правильне питання щодо екології.
Yes, thank you, Andre. It's a relevant issue. We should be aware of the environmental protection issues as well. So to sum up, I would like to ask each of you to bring up a takeaway. But there is one question to each of you. What steps, which two steps is Ukraine supposed to make in order to accelerate and assess the EU water strategy?
Not an easy one to conclude, but anyone wants to speak about, okay, we have that conference, two immediate steps that we are going to work on together as a priority. Andrei, please.
I have one more point because I forgot it. Deputy Minister Schrum, you just opened this EU for Recovery platform. So our thought and interest also is to support SGIZ to include what we have heard here today into this EU for Reconstruction. You called it a national framework for reconstruction. So let's make it political, let's make it coordinated by a Ukrainian ministry, and let's coordinate us. You should coordinate us and bring these thoughts in there. Thank you.
Napil?
Thank you so much. We are talking about the new program that was financed by 4 countries plus the European Union, and GIZ is our implementing agency for our ministry, which we're very happy to. So my short answer would be yes, let's do that. There will be no recovery strategy without the water sector, obviously. And the water sector is probably, you know, the base for a lot of recovery strategies in the big regions and in the small regions. So yes, let's do that. I will very much support this idea. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, please, Martin. Yeah, your last point, so that, your takeaways.
Yeah, thank you. Just to put forward two basic points. One is that I really like the point that my colleague and linesman from the GIZ was making, is that amidst all of these challenges, we do actually have a great opportunity. And it is important to recognize these opportunities when they present themselves, even though it is in times of war. And that is that for us, as the World Bank, and I'm sure it's similar for EIB, a lot of the work that we do is project financing. Sure, we do have opportunities to engage also in strategic support and so on, but at the end of the day, the big loans require bankable projects. Now, a lot of the planning that is occurring in order to get to the bankable projects is often not as much supported, and we are traditionally not always as strongly engaged in that time as we would like. Now here we have a situation where we are actually in the planning stage, and we have the opportunity to engage in innovative solutions and in out-of-the-box thinking, and influence certain approaches that are not the conventional approaches that are usually done, but it is something that includes principles of sustainability, and it includes innovative ways to also then incorporate certain aspects for profitability. That has always been a difficult thing in the water sector, but if we try to combine it with other municipal services and try to involve colleagues that are working on the pipeline towards PPP projects, blended finances, or capital investment from private sector, incorporate their experience, their requirements, their thinking, what would need to happen, maybe combine certain aspects of municipal services with more cash-generating, profitable endeavors, it would help us maybe push some of the water investments into a broader space, finance that, and thereby be a bit closer to attracting private investors and private capital than we would if we were the only ones in the water sector.
Thank you.
Thank you.
we are encroaching on the next thing. I know Alona wants to speak, Camila as well, but I think can you wait to be the concluding remarks, Alona? Okay, in which case, shop reactions. I will start with you, Thomas, then Camila, and then Violaine by order of hand raised.
Okay, thank you. Shop. Two things. Make administrative and bureaucratic burdens for the municipalities as minimal as possible. Second, and that's for the government, for the Ministry of Development, and for the municipalities themselves, restructure water canals. Like, you will not make a mistake if you do it anywhere. Just restructure it capital-wise, ownership-wise, management-wise. That's it.
Thank you. Clear. Camila.
Right, very short. I think here and now, energy efficiency in the water sector, non-revenue water decrease in the water sector, and parallel work on the water tariffs. And second is, I will use the word, I think, from Czech Republic, you mentioned town to town. The differences town to town, and a project, preparation of projects based on town to town checklist by officials, technicians already employed in city, in municipality, in water canals. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Violaine, please, yes.
Thank you.
Violaine.
Yes, just one word, engage. Join us. There will be a call for proposal announced by First Deputy Minister. Engage, contact us. You don't have design, doesn't matter. We have GIZ, Sweet Fund, ULEAD, so many institutions ready to help you. Contact us, even if you're not really ready 100%, don't be shy. We will make it together, and the more we have engagement, the more we will have funding. So engage. Thank you.
Thank you, Violaine. And thank you for waiting a bit, Aliona. You have a microphone? Yes. Over to you for your concluding remarks or any feedback.
The question was, what do we need? I think we need synergy here and energy. I am super grateful to Violaine because she brings this dynamic and energy to every credit or grant agreement that she does, and she pushes us, and we sometimes push her. But I think this synergy actually gives great results. Now we have also offices that you showed from UNICEF, dear Nicolau. We have the offices for the technical programs that I mentioned. We have also the water reform office, which is supposed not just bring the sector to EU acquis and to EU standards, but also help mayors, help communities, and help us do the bankable projects and do the real project for the investment. So it's all interconnected. Communities, cities, gromadas, grant money, European accession directives, energy efficiency, credit money, GIZ, technical support, and basically gets back to UNICEF and to the ministry. So, as water knows no borders and flows freely, I would love to see the sector with the money, ideas, and new standards and new financing flowing freely. But to do that, we really need regions and communities, to step up and to do, each one has to do, its own action in that. And I think the sector will show great results in Ukraine. I really believe here, and every drop will count of our common cooperation.
Thank you. Very inspiring.
Thank you. Маємо казати дякуємо.
Now it's time to say thank you. Together we will restore Ukraine and our sector.
Thank you.
І нашим спікерам маленькі презенти.
And small gifts to our panelists. Those are post stamps.